Hey everybody, I'm David. Welcome to my channel, My Yard Sale. Hey, today it's Saturday, and I wanted to tell a story about when I was a kid. Because yes, I know I don't look like a kid now. I definitely am not a kid now, but I was a kid once. And the funny thing is I had to go on to Chat GPT, or CPT, or whatever it is, or Google, and I had to look up the dates to try to figure out how old I was when this happened. So I was 21. I was a young man, and I was in Desert Storm, and I did flight operations from a MH-53 Echo helicopter, MH-53 Echo helicopter in the Gulf Storm, Gulf in Desert Storm in the Gulf area, and I did mine countermeasures. So my squadron was tasked with finding the mines that the Iraqis had dropped and disabling them. Now, this story is not about mines. So, oftentimes, when we flew around the Persian Gulf, we flew from different areas, obviously, to other areas. We were highly mobile, and we actually refueled behind airplanes. So they would deploy these airplanes, and we would fly behind them, and we would connect up a fueling probe to the airplane, and we would refuel in flight. Most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. It was horrible. But this story I'm going to talk about is when I flew into Iraq, or into Kuwait, very shortly after the Iraqis left. So Kuwait, and I don't know too much about the geographic. All I knew about was flying from the ship to the land and putting my feet on the ground and not having to worry about mines for a while, which was kind of nice. At one point, we flew from the ship that I was stationed on to land, and we flew up this road where there was obviously some battle that had happened. There was a pretty thick road. It was a pretty good sized road, and I don't remember if it was paved or if it was a dirt road. I don't even remember that, but I do remember flying up the road and seeing all these tanks and military vehicles, and of course they were disabled, and mostly they had all been on fire. Like, clearly there was an exodus from one area, and there was a whole lot of vehicles that were trying to get out of town, and they unfortunately did not get out of town. I don't know if they got gunned down by A-10 Warthogs, or if they got just gunned down by attack helicopters, Apaches, or what they got attacked with, but there was a lot of dead, well, I'm going to say probably a lot of dead Iraqis, but a lot of dead vehicles on the road. And as we flew up the road and saw these vehicles, we finally got to Kuwait, and this was one of the times when I was in the military where we actually checked out weapons. We had M16s and 45s, and of course I felt like Dirty Harry as a kid. I mean, I was a 21-year-old kid, and I'm packing a 45 in a shoulder holster and an M16. You know, I felt like I was going to battle, which is kind of funny now because it wasn't really going to battle. And actually, in retrospect, after thinking about all the just demolished vehicles, all the way from where we started all the way to Kuwait, there was no battle. It was just devastation. Somebody in an airplane or somebody in a helicopter basically gunned down all those vehicles, and there was no bodies. There was nothing living. There was nothing moving. So I mean, it's funny. We flew into Kuwait, and expecting that there might be some type of action. Of course, we had 50 caliber machine guns mounted on the helicopter where we could have taken action if we needed to. And of course, as a kid, a 21-year-old kid, growing up on Dirty Harry movies and just general Clint Eastwood movies, I mean, I was ready to take action. I was packing heat. I had a 45 in my vest, and I had an M16 in my, within a reach from me. And of course, we were, like I said, running guns with 50 caliber machine guns, which I don't know if you've ever seen a 50 caliber machine gun, but the bullet is about as big around as my pinky, maybe even as big around as my pointer finger, and it does serious damage of bodies or metal. So the interesting thing is, we flew in, we landed, and I don't even know how they landed us. I don't remember the communications over the radios. I don't know if they had aircraft like navigation or if they had. I don't remember exactly how we landed, but I do know we landed, and when we got out and we walked into the airport, there was an airport there. So maybe they had a I don't know how they communicated with us to land, or if we just landed and just did what we wanted. I don't even remember that. But we did go into the airport, and the interesting thing is, like I said, we saw all these dead vehicles all the way up to the airport. When we got to the airport, we landed, and we left the helicopter. A couple of us left the helicopter to go in and scope it out, check things out, and what I found, and I thought it was kind of interesting, I found some empty Coke bottles, which I had them for a long time, and I don't know where they are now. I don't know if I lost them or if I threw them away at some point, but we had Coke bottles, and what scared me kind of was that there was coffee cups on the tables in the airport, and the coffee was still hot. So the Iraqis had left not too long ago, and like I said, they obviously left and they didn't make it too far out of town before they got gunned down by, like I said, I don't know if it was A-10s or it could have been Cobra ships or it could have been Apache ships. I have no idea. Could have been helicopters. I don't know. It wasn't us though. I know that. We didn't engage anybody in the helicopters I was in. I guess I'm happy about that, because engagement always means that there's possibility that bad things can happen, and no engagement means much less possibility of those things happening. So yeah, we flew into the Kuwait airport very shortly after the Iraqis exited, and there was still hot coffee sitting on the tables, which that kind of scared me. I didn't know if there was still people around, which obviously there wasn't. There was no more action. I'm thankful for that. I didn't really want the action, but I was prepared for it. I was prepared for it weapon-wise, and I would have taken action if I needed to. But I thought this was interesting that I was a kid. I was a 21-year-old kid, and I was flying around in these helicopters, and I had the opportunity to go to Kuwait very shortly after the Kuwaiti army exited Kuwait, or the Iraqi army exited Kuwait, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, do me a favor, leave them below. If you have any thoughts or comments, leave them below. I'm open to hear. If you have any questions, I'll answer any questions. I just thought this was an interesting story that I wanted to share on a Sunday, or on a Saturday, I should say. Tomorrow is the day that I'm going to be posting my my update on my physical situation, and things have definitely changed. So if you're following my physical stuff, my health stuff, do me a favor and check it out tomorrow, because there's going to be some, I don't know, some good news, some bad news. I don't really know. I think it's maybe good news. It's pretty much good news. I feel like it's good news, but definitely some changes that I wanted to share. So if you're having a great day, thanks for watching. Bye bye.